Hi, I am coming to you on location here in Surrey, France. I was getting a little bit tired of filming my videos in my living room, and I thought I would try this out. Hadn't done it before because wind and noise can be a problem, but we'll see how this one goes, and maybe I will do more like this. Today, I am going to share with you 7 reasons that people struggle to learn a new language and what you can do to move past these traps. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Patricia Brooks, and 6 years ago, I left Richmond, Virginia in the United States, and I moved to the south of France. And one of my main reasons for moving here was because I wanted to become fluent in the French language. It's just so beautiful to me. I wanted to speak this lovely language. And I would say maybe 4 years ago, I claimed that I was proficient, that I was fluent, and it feels so good to be able to say that. But it wasn't easy, and it wasn't without a lot of effort. I started learning French in 2014, relearning French because I took it in high school and college, but really to relearn it so that I could speak to people in Canada and France in 2014. And here it is, 2024. And it's been a long haul, but it's been so worth it. Today, I want to share with you those 7 reasons I think that people struggle with learning a language, even when they have the goal of learning it to move to a country that speaks that language. Now, the first one has to do with using or relying on one app to learn the language. I know people love the app Duolingo. I too started out learning French using Duolingo, and it was something that helped me. But there came a point where I had to actually do something else because I had progressed beyond what Duolingo could help me with. And I think some people get to a certain level and they don't necessarily recognize that they need something more, and they get stuck in this trap and aren't really sure why they're not progressing further. So relying on an app as the only way of learning and relying on it way too long is the first thing I want to say. The second reason that people struggle to learn a foreign language, even when they're motivated or they have a real good reason to learn it, is because if they're older and they have heard about studies that show that children or people who are younger have an easier time learning a language, and they have bought into this idea that, oh, I'm older, so I'm going to struggle to learn this new language. Well, guess what? They're going to struggle to learn the language. Now, those studies may have scientific proof behind them, but you don't have to buy into them. You don't have to say, oh, now because I'm over a certain age, this is going to be hard or maybe even impossible for me to do. Because the thing is, if you believe something to be true, then it is true, right? You will not apply yourself in the way that you need to in order to learn a language. I know that if you've watched any of my videos, you probably have heard the story about my brother, who is gifted in languages, and how my mom told me that, oh, your brother, he is so good at languages. And I read that to mean that he's good and I'm not. And so I might as well just not even apply myself to learn the language. And that's exactly what I heard. And that's exactly what I believed. And that's exactly what I did. I did not apply myself in high school or in college when taking my French classes. And so I didn't learn it. And it's no surprise because I believed that I couldn't. And it's the same with these studies. So how can you get past that? You can stop telling yourself that that's the truth. You can start to say, no, I am quite capable of learning this language, and keep on going, right? And don't use that as a crutch to give up, throw in the towel. All right. So that is the second reason that people struggle with learning a foreign language. Number 3 has to do with the why. If you've watched my videos for any length of time, you've probably also heard me talk about what's your why. What's your why for wanting to move abroad? Well, what's your why for wanting to learn a new language? You might say, well, I'm planning to move to the country that speaks this language. And oftentimes that is not enough, because I've heard people say, well, I'm going to be moving to Paris, or I'm going to be moving to a big city where everybody speaks English. And so I really don't have to learn the language. And I think that does not help you to learn the new language if you feel like, well, it's really not that important. It's not going to help me that much, so why put in the effort? I think that there may be cities where many, many people speak the language that you speak, and that you might not have to learn a new language in order to get by. But I'm all about moving to a country and thriving there, right? And so that means having friends who are natives of that country and really getting to know the culture. And some of those experiences are only accessible to you if you're able to speak and understand that foreign language. So the idea that you would move to a foreign country that speaks a new language and think that you're going to have the full breadth of experience, I think that's a little bit naive. But I also think that if you remove this idea that, well, I'm going to a big city and everybody's going to speak my language anyway, and start to think of reasons why you're learning this new language, at least at a basic level, will help you and ease your life, right? And doing so, that will help to motivate you to do the work that's required, because language learning is something that takes time, and it takes energy and effort. And it also takes number 4, which is people struggle to learn a new language because they are not consistent with their practice. One of the things that I did every day, starting at the end of 2014, was I listened to my Pimsleur lesson. It's a 30-minute lesson that I would do on my morning walk, and I would do the lessons and I would repeat after them. And then I'd go back and I redid the lessons. And over time, something amazing happened. I was able to hold a conversation, basic though it may have been, in French, which gave me confidence and courage to continue on, right? So consistency is key. The way that we learn anything is through repetition. Our brains, when we learn the neuro connections in our brains, they start to connect once there's consistency, once there's repetition, and they start to strengthen. And then before you know it, you have learned something new. You've learned something new. You've learned how to speak a different language. You've learned how to say something in a new language that you couldn't say before. And so consistency is key. And I think one of the biggest challenges with consistency is time, having enough time, but also not getting frustrated to the point where you just throw your hands up in the air and say, this is too hard. I'm not going to do this anymore. So what can you do to make it a priority? And what can you do to not let frustration get to you? Well, I think that prioritization comes from the point before this one, which is you've got to know your why. Why is it so important for you to spend time to learn this language? Is it because you want to interact with the locals and really get the true experience of that country? Is it because maybe you have met somebody and you want to be able to communicate with them? Whatever that is, that will help you to prioritize it and say, I'm really busy, but because my why is this, I'm going to find that 30 minutes a day to do something consistently with my language. The second piece, that frustration piece, I think has to do with giving yourself grace and recognizing that when you learned the language that is your native tongue, you didn't sit down to learn it. It was something that you absorbed. You absorbed because you were surrounded by it all of the time. And that if you're expecting to become fluent very quickly, that can lead to frustration. If you also have perfectionistic tendencies, that can lead to frustration as well. And so knowing yourself and recognizing this and giving yourself that grace, I think will allow you to take some of the pressure off of you so that you can continue on even when maybe you have a bad day of learning. Okay. So that is number 4. Which one of these so far have you experienced? Let me know in the comments. Now, number 5 has to do with something that I am guilty of having done. I loved my Pimsleur method, and I did that for years before I got into a proper French class. I did have a tutor, but that was really more for conversation. And so as a result, when I moved to France, I was able to speak French and communicate and get things done when I could think clearly enough, that is. But on the level of reading or writing and on the level of oral comprehension, I lagged behind because I focused solely on speaking and being able to say certain things. So I didn't understand why words and phrases were put together the way they were. I didn't even know how to spell some of the words I was able to speak. And the thing that came to me last was understanding fast spoken French. That became the bane of my existence because it seemed like I would never get there. And I would just hear, a word here, a word there, but not understand the whole sentence. And that was very frustrating to me. And I think one of the things that would have helped me with that is if I committed some time to watching French TV shows and movies, even if I didn't understand it. Yes, you heard me. Watching and listening to content in the language that you're learning can be helpful even if you don't understand it, because your brain is being washed with the language, right? It's maybe something you don't understand, but after some time, those connections, those neural connections will sync up, and something you hadn't understood before, it's like, they're saying this. And it's amazing how this works. And if you are planning to move to France, or if you are learning the French language and you would like some help with your oral comprehension, French Channel may be something that could help you with that. French Channel is the #1 streaming service for all things French, French culture, French entertainment, and they have the largest library of French movies and TV shows and children's programming and documentaries. And it's accessible to an English-speaking audience through English or French subtitles. And it's a great way to decompress because you can watch a movie and absorb, have the French language wash through your brain as you are kind of unwinding. And as I said, if you don't understand it, there are subtitles, but also the idea of having your brain exposed to this language over and over and over again, that will help you in terms of the oral comprehension. So if this sounds like something that could help you, if you enjoy French movies or series, and you would like to be able to benefit from this, French Channel has an amazing offer now through April 22nd, 2024. For my viewers, they have given me a promo code that will get you 30% off an annual subscription so that you can enjoy this French content. You can help improve your language learning. You can decompress watching wonderful French programming and save 30% while doing that. If this sounds like something that could help you, that you would like to take advantage of, be sure to go to French Channel by clicking the link in the description of this video and entering promo code Patricia30 to get your 30% discount. Now, again, that's good through the 22nd of April, 2024. If you're watching this after that date, then you can still benefit from savings by entering promo code Patricia15 and get 15% discount off of the monthly or annual subscription. All right. So that is something that I wish I had done when I was starting with French, because then that oral comprehension would have come to me a lot sooner. Number 6 has to do with something that I wish I had done sooner, and that's taking a class. When I moved to France, I thought my level of French was better than it was. And then when I was thrown in to the deep end, I'm like, oh, Patricia, your language skills are pretty good, but they're not as good as you thought. Maybe you should go down to the end of the street and sign up with that language school that your landlady told you about. And I hesitated to do that because I was afraid of going back to class. I, have these preconceived notions of what it's like to go back to school. And I've been through a lot of school, and I was like, yeah, I like to learn, but not in the classroom setting. But what I found was it was a really good experience, especially here in France, because I met a lot of different people from a lot of different countries who were learning French. And I was exposed to the French language and taught French in the French language. So it was an immersive experience that helped me move forward with that. And so if you're like me and you hesitate to go back to a classroom setting, it might be different from what you expect. And I think that it will help you to stop struggling to learn a language that you want to learn. All right. And number 7 is something that I think we all can struggle with from time to time. And that is not wanting to sound stupid, not wanting to make a mistake. And so therefore, when we are in a situation when we can use the language skills that we have learned to this point, we may not do that. We might not speak up, or if somebody speaks English, then we might rely on English or the language that is your native tongue. And I think that in order to move through this, you have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to maybe sound a little stupid at times. I remember when I was signing my rental agreement, the woman asked me for a deposit, a security deposit. And in French, it's the same word as caution in English, but it's pronounced caution. And my pronunciation wasn't good at that point. And with some words, it still isn't good. And so I said to her, oh, and this caution. And she just laughed. She laughed. And that could have been a point in time for me to say, oh my gosh, my French is horrible. I just don't need to say another word in it. But I laughed along with her, and she explained, oh, you said cochon, which is French for pig and not caution, right? I neglected to pronounce the word the way it should have been because it was so close to an English word, caution, right? Where we say shh at the end, right? But I share that with you to say that if every time that happened to me where I mispronounced a word, I used the wrong word, I would not be able to say that I can speak French fluently. And it feels so good to be able to do that it's okay when I do make mistakes, because I still make mistakes. And I give myself grace, I laugh at myself, and I keep on going, because that is the only way through, right? So those are 7 reasons that you might be struggling to learn a new language. Which one of these do you think is a problem for you? Let me know in the comments. And if you think that listening to French TV shows and movies and documentaries will help you not only with cultural acclimatization, but also with learning the language and understand fast-spoken French, then be sure to take advantage of that 30% offer from France channel. All right. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this gorgeous view behind me. Not the sunniest of days, but still a different view from my living room picture. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe. That's all I have for you today. Bye for now.